students in Lebanon High School in 2014-15. And I was 17 at the time, going on 18. And it was not my first trip, but it was my first experience of living with American family, so it was really confusing. I spent here in Lebanon 10 months, which have been really awesome, and it opened just like a really wide range of opportunities, experiences, friendships that I could not even dream of. I participated in the uh, 2015 Culture Fair also. It was, as far as I know, the first Culture Fair Mrs. Barker organized. And it was an original first time idea. And I remember my excitement in participating in it. I introduced Georgia. I even have prepared a presentation about it, and I even have some pictures of it included. And also my former exchange student friends also participated in that culture fair. So I'm excited to share with you my life. As of right now, I'm a student at the University of Trier in Germany, and I'm a sinology student, Chinese Studies and Egyptology, which Egyptology is my kind of obsession since I've been 7 years old. So it's a real dream come true and a real opportunity. And I'm finishing my bachelor's degree in a year and a half. So from then on, I'm moving on onto Arabic studies and Egyptology. So if you have any questions, that was just a brief summary. I'll be really happy to answer you.
Wonderful. And I'm encouraging you guys to unmute and ask any questions if you would. And I'll definitely allow anyone to come and speak. Any initial questions? Otherwise, I'll start. I always like to begin, you mentioned your involvement with Lebanon High School and the Flex program, and your host family spending time here. I think that 2015 was maybe the first time we organized the culture fair in the way that you saw it. It was organized, I think, previous by another teacher, Miss Barker, but it's really taken off in the last couple of years. The 2018 ended up having a huge participation with special guests and musicians. And obviously now that we're reorganizing it this year, it's going to be quite different because it's mostly virtual as our guests are being safe around the world. Couple things that I would love to ask you about, Mari, is you say your passion is Egyptology. Have you had a chance to travel to Egypt?
So yes, thank you, Mr. Adams, for this wonderful question. I'm sure it's interesting. So the problem is with that I've always been fascinated with Egypt, as I always said, but I never wanted to travel as a tourist. And then when I had this opportunity, one thing came up and then the next. One time I refused because I just wanted to get the full range of experience and knowledge before I traveled, like to be fully prepared, because any country I go to, I always read up on it, or it's a country that has been connected to me and my person and is a like kind of part of my heart. And I always know a lot about this country before I travel always. So I didn't want to travel like closely like a tourist and following a guide. So then last year I have really had that opportunity, but then like I arranged everything. My plans were already settled, and I was in Georgia at the time because of COVID. From March to September, I stayed in Georgia. I left Germany, traveled to Georgia, had my online classes there. And then in the summer, I figured out maybe if the COVID situation just kind of lets up a little, I will travel to Egypt. And I had already plans made up with my friends and everything. And then the numbers skyrocketed again, and I wasn't able to. So hopefully this year, it's my ultimate goal, but we'll see.
Yes, I know we're all kind of in this disappointing phase of not being able to travel and see people especially when you're in a place that you're not 100% familiar with. I can completely agree. As I was talking with Mari about my plans to travel to the Tetons National Park this summer, I'm doing everything in my power to get everything organized, including a river trip along the Snake River. And so I love canoeing, and so I'm sure you guys can understand how many little bitty steps it takes to travel to another country. And in your studies, you say that you're going to study Arabic and Islamic culture. What are some of the areas of study in Egypt that you have been really fascinated by?
It's a kind of difficult topic and a long topic, but I will try to summarize. The thing about me is that I've always wanted to study Islam, and I've started studying it independently when I turned 13, because I've already read up on ancient Egypt since I was 7 years old. But then the fascination with Islam came along, and I found out that there is a whole different aspect to Egypt, and the Arabic culture comes into it. So then in 2016 and 15, when I left America already in 2015, I had my entrance exams. I finished my school, and I decided to go to the Arabic faculty and enroll there. But then after 2 years, the education wasn't that good enough, and I decided to move to Germany. I've had a few details that I just don't want to go into detail right now because it will take us on a long journey, but I just had to move. It wasn't in the plans, but it happened suddenly. And of course, I miss Arabic because here there isn't any Arabic option, and I was supposed to continue on any Eastern related language or culture that I chose to, because I've already studied 1 semester or 2 semester of Arabic in Georgia, so that allowed me to participate and enroll in a German university without taking an exam, and I already had a diploma. So that's why it was easy to enroll for me there. But I have had to study Chinese because there wasn't an Arabic option. But then I found that there was a minor in Egyptology. So I enrolled in Egyptology, and it has been a huge blessing. So the Egyptology has 5 steps of language, each language individual and springing from each other. It's Old Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, Late Egyptian, which kind of strings from the Middle Egyptian dialect, and then Coptic. So right now, the Arabic population, they speak mostly Arabic, but in Christian churches, they have the liturgy in Coptic. So that's what I study. I study all the ancient languages of Egypt.
Very cool. And so the languages, obviously the culture, I'm encouraging my students to do a lot of what you obviously are passionate about by getting deeper than just maybe what the tourist idea of a culture is. I think a lot of times when we search a country's history, we see the landmarks and we see the traditional clothes. What are some suggestions that you have as a world traveler to get beyond just the superficial layer?
One suggestion I would absolutely have for anyone and everyone traveling anywhere in the world is get out of your comfort zone, try new things, try the things that scare you, and absolutely go with a guide, without a guide if you can. And if you need a guide, then choose someone local and communicate with local people, because they have the knowledge, they have lived in this country for centuries, for generations. They have a lot of interesting stories to tell. They will take you on journeys you would never expect. And when you travel with a guide, yes, it's interesting. They just give you facts, but what's beyond those facts is real people hiding behind the history. And unless you communicate with them, which might be kind of rocky because there are all kinds of misunderstandings, but once you go beyond there, there's a whole entire new world inside a country, or a few even, that are waiting to be discovered. But it can be scary. It was scary for me because for the first time, I've given you my example. For the first time when I arrived in America, I've had like a few expectations, a few misconceptions about how Americans should be and how they are like and how they live. But what I found out was an incredibly welcoming family, an incredibly welcoming environment, and all kinds of traditions that I have no idea about. So I would encourage you to just get into local traditions and local people, communicate with them, and just absorb any and all information that you can.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. And as we kind of turn the tides, you have a background and a history, and you have a love of other cultures. And I think if you're a world traveler, you automatically have an openness to trying new things. Um, what are some of the things that you noticed in the United States that were really, I guess, as valuable as an experience? And then we'll kind of go to some other places that you've been.
I don't really know how to answer this because, again, it's a complex topic. But the first thing that I noticed that has been lacking in my own family was like a sense of togetherness, a sense of just being united as a family, as a close-knit group. And of course, I have an incredibly close relationship to my parents, but they are divorced, and I don't have a large family. So when I arrived in Lebanon and my host family had this incredible like area and incredible amount of relatives that just all wanted to meet me, all wanted to welcome me. Then I went into high school. There were like people asking me where I was from. It was so foreign for me. And of course, Georgian people are incredibly friendly and incredibly hospitable and kind. But this was just a new level of, belonging somewhere. And that's what I've missed ever since. But I found something like this in Germany and in my friends, because wherever I go, it's a bit hard at first to make friends, as for everyone, I would imagine. But I found such a close network of friends and people that support me. It's just incredible how many people you meet that you would never imagine just being in contact with, that are different from you, but also that you have like core interests and values, and then you go from there and discover like all the different mentalities that your culture doesn't have. You just like expand your horizons. Like it's just really diverse and really complex, but it's also really fascinating.
Very good. I want to echo what you had to say about how you might go to a different country or a different culture, but there are so many things that we share in common, and that this wanting to belong and wanting to be a part of something bigger. You mentioned how you often will look for areas that have similar values, and you have similar interests. And I think this could be applied to any student as well. When you think about when they're in high school, oftentimes that sense of belonging and trying to find a group that is supportive and encouraging is so important. Obviously, I'm part of the art department and the art club, and our group, like the international club, are all very, very important for these students. I would like to have have students speak up about what they find important, and how that maybe you could help them kind of put it in perspective about what their values are and how they can maybe learn about others. Anybody have any questions about life in high school and maybe some yearnings to travel?
Or anything really. You can ask anything. It can be anything from travel to religion to any aspect of life, really. I'm happy to answer if I can help in any way.
What's it like living there in Germany?
What's it like? Sorry, I didn't understand you acoustically.
What's it like living there?
Ah, okay. Living there, it's hard. One word that I can find. Because aside from the cultural thing and having to adjust, I also have like a lot to study and a lot of my shoulders. I've never lived alone before moving to Germany. I've always traveled places, but never for this period of time that I was just suddenly left alone, and I was shouldering all kinds of responsibilities. So it was hard, but at the same time, people are really welcoming if you are open. And one thing I noticed about them is that if you try and speak their language, however much you can, it doesn't matter if you speak only 2 sentences, 2 words, or whatever. If they see you making an effort, they will just welcome you doubly with as much words as you can master. And I just don't know. They also make an effort to include you in their conversations. And my university has an incredibly diverse network of students, exchange students. And my university, as I'm studying sinology, Chinese studies, it has direct contact with Chinese universities. So there are a lot of Chinese exchange students, a lot of American exchange students, a couple that I've met, and it made me really happy because I treat US like my second home, and it just reminded me of home and all my experiences. But yes, I did notice that they are that different from me or from anyone really. They are really, really kind and really warm. You just feel this worth, and otherwise, it might be challenging, but it was so worth it to get into the spirit of like talking to them and getting to know them. It was challenging, but worth it once I fit in.
It's interesting because, we often feel like we're kind of on an island. What are some areas that you have found that sense of belonging? Did you go to restaurants? Did you have belong to clubs or organizations, or was it just in class?
Uh, the First of all, the first sense of belonging I've had as at the heart of my university, because as I already said, there are a lot of exchange students, a lot of people, even German people themselves who have traveled a lot, who have these experiences. Also, Germans are really open to discussion. They are really open-minded. They want to know everything about you. So I just found that I was just at home in this really culturally diverse environment, and it was really exciting. Also, I went on trips also with a lot of exchange students because we have an exchange club which like generally always organizes trips for exchange students, and not only for a really cheap price. So we went there whenever I had time. I went with my friends, and one of my closest friends is also from Jordan. So and she's a really interesting character because, as expected, she's not a Muslim, but she's really liberal and free, and she's just a free soul. And we just connected, and it was interesting, kind of, to see the different side of people coming from the Middle East, but not thinking like a typical Middle Eastern people. I also found some Georgians that I didn't expect. They are also doing their masters or they just go to school. And it was just refreshing. You find like people from your own home, you find people with different backgrounds. Germans are really open-minded and they love a good discussion. And also in food, because I found actually my favorite restaurant, like a Georgian restaurant, owned by a Georgian couple, and it was really refreshing. And I don't know everything. There are just a lot of aspects that I could name, but I just don't want to talk about this like too long.
No, I think your comments are very valid. Is that you're purposely seeking out exchange of ideas and conversations with different people. I find it interesting. You studied in the United States. Obviously, you've studied in Germany, and you had a long history of studying German and things, German culture, and now you studied Egypt, which is we've got Europe, US, Europe, Middle Eastern, and now China, which is Far Eastern. I would like to kind of understand your perspective about some of those similarities and how maybe people see culture differently in other countries.
Yes, the first thing you need to understand when you are just confronted with people from another background and another culture, you need to really listen to them, like not just hear the voices that they make, but really listen with your heart and being open to their ideas. Because, for example, China and Chinese students didn't like it didn't fit in my plans, but as I had no other option, I just like went into it and I didn't know what to expect, and I don't always like what I find. So it's a hard topic for me, but what I try to do is listen with an open heart, and I found some Chinese and China related topics that really fascinate me. So yeah, I think the key is to really listen and try to understand. Just try to put yourself into another person's shoes, another cultural background. And in order to do that, you just need to dig deeper, either into this person and their background or just culture. That's depending on your interest. Of course, you don't need to force it if you find yourself that you are not interested, but it might help.
Any questions from the students about, kind of getting out of their comfort zone, or what are some things that you think about when you are kind of pushed out of your comfort zone, guys? All right. Well, I'll let you interrupt me at any time. Don't worry about etiquette here. I just want to make sure our conversation keeps going. I've been very fortunate to travel quite a bit, and in Germany, like you said, it's a very open-minded conversation is very accepting. And then I've also traveled in China, where you literally fear for the exchange of ideas, and religion is another part of that. I was with a group of dancers who were also a part of a mission trip to exchange culture and just share friendship. And it was a constant reminder of what I took for granted, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion. I don't know if you can share maybe some of your experiences or ideas that how that applies when you're traveling and studying.
Uh, I think that I've never been confronted with anyone just restricting my freedom of speech. If anything, I'm getting more and more free by the day. But one thing I noticed when I started studying Chinese studies and everything about China, and we go really deep, it's not just the language, it's the culture, it's the literature, it's like everything. And they really offer a realistic view. They don't sugarcoat anything. They tell you, of course, like, look, it's like this, and they have a restriction of speech. And a lot of bad things happen basically because there are concentration camps for example, Uyghurs. That's one of the ethnical groups in China, and Muslims. And there are a lot of underground religious societies that are banned from worshiping their religion and practicing their religion openly. But there is also another side to what these people represent, how they think, what they are like, that they are just people breathing, people like us, and they don't like being repressed. Of course, they are like, they grew up in communism and it's fine for them. I mean, we've actually have this discussion in class once related to how we think the communists will ever change or not. I do not think that it will change because they grew up with it and it's kind of fine, not fine, but while they find some restrictions, they learned to live with it already. And it's a structure that can like really can't be easily demolished. But at the same time, I learned to really think about this in like two sides, two aspects. While I don't really like what they do, I think that I adore Chinese people and I just feel sorry for them. So no, I personally wasn't restricted, But I also fear going to China, and I refused so far the opportunity to go on exchange there. And also my classmates really wanted to, but didn't get to go because of COVID. But I think if COVID didn't come in the way of that, I wouldn't go because I'm also scared. There are times that I'm really, really afraid of getting out my comfort zone, but restricting my freedom of speech and freedom of movement and freedom of expression is something that I just can't stand. So there's that. But I really like to go to Taiwan, which is, as China claims, is part of China, but is not actually, it's my opinion. And there's a long discussion and it's going on into politics, so we won't go there. But Taiwan is also really diverse and I'd like to go to that.
Yeah, I would also love to travel. My half sister Chantra is from her family's from Thailand, and I have a stepfather from Thailand, and I would think that that would be a magical experience. You know, whenever my stepdad was young, he was feeling political pressure, and he left the country to the United States to kind of receive, you know, have more freedom and the ability to you know, to become the person he is today. So I understand that people go through struggles, and sometimes we in the United States kind of take it for granted. And I would love to, you know, to challenge ourselves to be advocates. And I think I would like to know where you see yourself using your education and your influence in the future. If you feel like your education has a role in maybe making change?
I think my education absolutely has a role. That's why I studied this much, and that's why I always try to get deeper into the other cultures and step into other people's shoes. And I think I can absolutely advocate. For example, there are issues that I'm really passionate about, like the role of women in Islam, the role of Chinese people and their government and how they can change their lifestyle and everything. There are a number of issues that I can speak about, and I really wanted to make a blog about it. Unfortunately, I don't have time right now because I study all the time. It's chaotic. But also, I would like to change my world and the world around me in a different way, because I've really want to combine Egyptology and Arabic to study ancient texts and everything related to that. And I would like more to make archaeological discoveries. But we'll see. I purposely wanted to combine this because when you combine Arabic and Egyptology, there is a whole different aspect that opens itself. So I will have to study a lot to open that up and to be a professional at what I do. But we'll see how it goes. But I would absolutely see myself advocating for the issues that interest me, that I'm passionate about. For example, one of them is climate change. And I would absolutely encourage anyone, whatever the age, whatever the passion, to do the same, because that's how we bring about change.
Very good. I really appreciate your passion and your dedication. Obviously, you are very dedicated to your education as well as pursuing issues. I think as students kind of think about, you know, their culture fair projects and maybe just education in general, I really feel strongly that you know, our interests and our passions are really kind of a guide for us to pursue things in our life that have meaning. You know, whenever we think about mixing one thing and another, you may have a passion for, say, you said, you know, Egyptology and Islam, and you know, those are very unique things. But what if your, you know, interest is in food and music, or a country of, you know, and I've talked to a lot of my students who really have a passion for Ozarks culture, you know, hunting and music. You have these sometimes opposing ideas, but if you can find overlapping intersections, then your voice really becomes unique. And oftentimes when we have students creating projects and art, you know, your initial observation is that it's just a copy or a replica of someone else's idea. But if you can overlap those things between your experiences and other influences, then that becomes your voice.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would like to name an example of my own. When I was in a second semester at the Trier University, so I've already studied for almost a year there. It was a summer semester, and one of my favorite professors who has been teaching and studying and been in the field of Egyptology for more than 40 years. So she's a great professional at what she does. The first thing she told us when we entered class, or one of the first things, was that when you know there is a perception that especially in the young generation of archaeologists and Egyptologists, that okay, you've studied this much and you want to be a professional, so you think you can do this on your own. But the archaeology and Egyptology always requires effort, and there is a lot of issues and a lot of expertise areas in which you can't just go around alone, and you need help from other fields to make this happen, so you can get like discover something really important and really real. And your discovery can be ruined if you just insist on working alone, where whereas there are like other professors or other people in other fields that interlap with yours that can help you, and this discovery becomes better and then that much more important there, because there has been a lot of input from other people and not just your perspective or your area of expertise. And that's what I think always applies to life. There is no shame in any passion whatsoever. That's my legit real opinion. You can like pursue anything from business to culture to music to anything, as long as you are passionate about this and as long as you take seriously what you do, and as long as you don't do it halfway, and also going deeper and also pursuing another career, or maybe switching fields, or maybe interlapping with someone is not a bad idea as some people think. And especially in my country, there's like you either do this or this misconception from the older generation, and they think you are jumping from one thing to another and you don't really fully pursue what you started and either do this or that. I don't think like that. It's important that you dedicate fully yourself to one thing, of course, but there is no shame in interlopping, because the more knowledge you gain, the better person you are, the more brightened horizons you have. So yeah, I
Very
think
good.
that's really important.
So I'm wanting to ask if there's any projects students are working on that we could, have a little bit of discussion about how they're bringing their own interests or their own experiences into. I think that's a big challenge, but I'd love to hear from any student that has a project they're working on. Any studies of another country or culture? I know each of us here are trying to do a culture fair project. Should I call on people maybe? I'm going to call on Cheyenne if it's not too much of a trouble, because I know she's always doing lots of interesting work. Cheyenne? Which country or culture are you studying?
So currently for the culture fair, I am doing sign language. So like I'm kind of like jumping in between all of that stuff, and because that's my comfort zone, because that's what I do at school. I also do the photography side of school, so I'm kind of like merging both of my things together. And then I'm getting out of my comfort zone because I'm also going to be working with a partner. And as Mr. Adams knows, I don't usually work with people.
Good job. And so I know, Caleb, do you want to share a little bit about what your country or culture research is?
So what I'm studying is I'm studying Hawaii because I really want to go there someday.
Very good. And so is there a part of that country or culture that you're you're personalizing. You say you want to go there. Why is it become an interest to you?
Because what they do is unique. Not only that, there's a volcano there.
Yeah, so not just the cultural beauty, but the natural beauty. I think I can relate to that a lot whenever I travel. I'm going to just go on down the road. Anna, if you're there, can you talk to us? Or Kaylee?
For my culture project, I am studying Korea.
Very good. And have you thought about what aspects of Korea that you want to really dive deep into?
I know a little bit about the language, so I'm gonna go a little bit into that, and the music side of it as well. I want to do a lot more research on the music and the language.
Very good. So, yeah, the music is such an important part of culture, and it can constantly changes and evolves. And I think people can really appreciate that. Thank you. Trey, are you there? Going to ask you about what your thoughts are, or Anna. All right. Mary, I thought possibly we could use up some time for you to share that presentation, if you would.
Absolutely. Let me just share my screen. I don't know why it doesn't let me share it.
You might have to go in the very bottom. There's a green button called.
Yes, I know. I'm pressing on it, but
Oh, okay. All right. Let me see if maybe it's something to do with me. I apologize if I'm. Okay, hold on. All right. So I'm gonna see if there's any restrictions here. Allow. Okay, now maybe it's gonna work.
Yes, now it's working. So
Okay, thank you.
Can anyone see this fine?
It looks wonderful.
Yeah, so what I had is a little bit presentation. The first part of it is about Georgia, and I'm gonna talk about my country for a little bit. And I also have a YouTube video that I found that is self-explanatory kind of. I figured that rather than me talking, of course I'm gonna be talking as well, but rather than me talking, it has a lot of shots and a lot of moments that are really important to my culture. So maybe I will show you that, and I can go into detail, or I can just summarize my presentation shortly. That's however you wish. But
just please feel free to present how you planned, and I'm sure we'll ask questions if we have any.
Okay, the first slide that I wanted, it's a bit of a joke, but I wanted to show you the difference. So this is the state of Georgia, and I'm from the country of Georgia, and many people don't know where Georgia is located because you may not know this, but Georgia has been a part of Soviet Union for 70 years. So when people think or talk about Georgia, the people that have not been there, have not visited it, they either don't know what it is, or they talk about the state of Georgia, which is located in the US, obviously, or they talk about Russia and they don't know anything about Georgia except that it was part of Russia, and they still think it's a part of Russia, so they don't know that this country actually exists. But lately we've been having an increase in international tourism, so there's been a lot of interest. So this is my video. Let me just check if I can. Can anyone see this? I'm just gonna zoom it in. Oh, it doesn't. Okay. So yeah, that's just I just shortened it a little bit because it's a bit long. But as you can see, Georgia has a really, really diverse culture. Oh, sorry, it went ahead. And you can see some of my favorite monasteries here. And Georgia is really, really great for outdoor activities because, for example, in the summer, if you want to ski, you can go up to the mountains and you can ski, and at the same time, in the same day, you can go to the seaside and have just a swim. So we have the 4 seasons and the 4 tropical zones, and all of them are represented in the in my country. But the wonder of that is that Georgia is really, really tiny, and there is only a 3 million or 4 million population, 3 to 4, of Georgians, and most of them are immigrants because a lot of Georgians have left the country because of the political situation, but we are still holding up, and that's been going on for centuries. So yeah, and I just wanted to tell you about a little bit about Georgian language. It's one of the oldest languages in the world. It's I think the fourth one after ancient Egyptian and Chinese, and it has its own unique writing system and language family, and it's from the Carthaginian language family, which has all the Georgian languages included, and it's not similar to any language, not similar to Indo-European languages, not similar to Semitic languages, which includes, of course, Arabic and Hebrew. It just has its own unique class, and it's about 3,000 to 4,000 years old. And here you see our different alphabets. Actually, we have 3 alphabets. One of them is called Ausomtauruli, Nuskhuri, and Mkhedruli. Nuskhuri is used only, it's this one on this picture. I think you can see it fine because I've tried to enlarge however much I could so that it wouldn't disrupt the view of the text or anything. But this script is nowadays only used in churches and in our liturgy, and this is the alphabet Mkhedruli, which we use now. And if you'd like, I can make a little bit of an exercise for you later. I will just write your names however you wish and show you how it works on a Word file, of course, and I will share my screen and show it to you, and also explain how it's written. So, our capital city is Tbilisi, and it was founded in 455 AD by Wahdan I of Iberia, and it's connected to a really well-known Georgian myth. The myth was that the first capital city, of course, was Mtskheta, which is located like 15 minutes away from Tbilisi. And the king really liked to hunt in the woods nearby, because this area, which is now known as Tbilisi and our capital city, was almost entirely the woods. And he went hunting, and his falcon, while chasing his prey, disappeared for about 20 minutes. So he went to look for it, and upon just finding him, he found a stream which was running with hot water, and he found his falcon with his prey like dead, interlocked together with each other, and they were basically dead because the stream was hot. And the name of Tbilisi springs from that, as the Tbili means worm in Georgian, and sea just means water. It's not an early regional, and not the name, not the word we use now of sea, but it was an ancient word that's gone out of use. So it was like a stream. And this is the statue of our king, the Wahdan I of Iberia, and he was really, really strong, so that Iranians called him Gorgasali, which means the wolf-headed, which means that his force was so strong, and he could fight single-handedly so many enemies that they were running out of terror from him. So they gave him that nickname. And this is our really, really famous monument. It's called the Mother of Kartli, Kartli Zeda. And the irony of this is that it represents, our culture perfectly. The myth is that she carries a jug of wine in one hand to welcome and be hospitable to the people that are coming to Georgia with kind thoughts and friendship, and in one hand with a sword to fight off the enemies. So it's been our symbol for as long as I remember. So these are some views of Tbilisi. This is if you see this church, this is the famous Metehi Church, which has been here for 500 years at least. And this is our famous Aluminium Bridge, which was built in 2010 by our first president. And it lights up at night, and it's a really beautiful sight. So you can see the church up close from here. And this is the part of the old town. This is actually my favorite part of old town. So you see these colorful houses, and this is one of the two places that are absolutely my favorite. And here are the streams of this water, which was boilingly hot and warm when the king first discovered the city, this place, and they have made a recreational bath from it. So people can come, take a bath, and just refresh themselves, but it's ridiculously expensive because it's a natural stream. So I've never been there. I've tried to go a couple times, but something got in the way always. So I'm hoping I can experience it one day. My friends have. So this is one of the churches that you have seen in the video. I don't know if you can still recall, but this was the only church whose inside was shown. And the original church was built in the 1st century AD, and it's called Sveti Troveli, translated as living pillar. And it has also a story connected to it. It was the story that Saint Nino came to Georgia in the 4th century, and she helped spread the Christianity. Of course, the Christianity came to Georgia in the 1st century, but in the 4th century, it wasn't as widely spread. So she started building a church, and when the church was basically almost completed and there was only one last pillar standing, it just wouldn't budge. It went into the air. I know it sounds mystical, but it was the truth because I have facts based on that, but it's a long story. If you want to ask me later, I will answer that. So this pillar went high up into the air and stayed there for 3 nights. And the workers couldn't just bring it down however much they tried. So she stayed there for additional 2 to 3 days praying. And eventually the pillar came down with the force of her prayers. And this pillar is standing now inside of the church. And this is the view of the church. So this is the enlarged and rebuilt church, which was built in 11th century during one of our famous kings, George I. Here you can see his reigning years. He's reigned for a really, really little bit of time because that's when he died, actually. He died really young, and the historians' opinions about him are really, really diverse. For example, my Georgian teacher and my history teacher took turns, one praising him and the other just denouncing all his deeds, but one deed he actually really completed was building this monastery, although he cut off the arm of the architect. So his arm, the arm of the architect is, even now, there is a relief of his arm on the church to just commemorate his memory. And there is also our really famous work of literature connected to that story. So that's interesting. So here is a little bit about myself, not to burden you with boring facts about my country. I have an indistinguishable wanderlust. I travel all the time whenever I can and whenever my money, resources, and my time permits, because basically the other half of the time I study. And I'm an animal lover, and I purposely included my puppy here. This was him in puppyhood, and this is him now, a few months before. Like, it was taken in November, I think. And his name is Barney. And actually, the fact about me is that, of course, I communicate with people and I love hearing about diverse culture and people, but I love most animals more than people, because I think animals have the unique empathy and love that humans are not capable of. They just don't have to know you or don't have to just communicate that much to you in order for them to give their heart to you. It's like they trust you completely, and that's why I adore about animals. So as previously mentioned, I was Flex alumni 2014-15 in Lebanon, Missouri, and right now I'm completing my China Studies and Egyptology at the University of Trier. And there is a little bit about my exchanger. There is my host family. Of course, I have a picture with my host father, but I just couldn't find it because I don't have this many pictures in my computer. There is my friends, and this is Diana, one of the exchange students, and this is Christina. They both of them went to Lebanon High School with me, but Christina had to leave early because she had also her exchange entrance exams. And there are two my American best friends, which I'm like still in contact with. They are the best friends in the entire world. Actually, I don't know what I would do without them. And they are like the first two people who actually accepted me as I was and just welcomed me into an American culture.
So Katie and Renee were the two
Yes.
ladies, and Renee is actually a substitute teacher at Lebanon High School. Just started.
Yes, it is.
So excited for her.
Yes, she is doing an awesome job, and I communicate with her regularly. I spoke to her yesterday, and we communicate on a weekly basis, and she's doing an amazing job. So this is my exchange group. Of course, there aren't like all of us on this picture, and I have all the pictures of us, a lot of pictures, and I've thought of including all of them into the presentation, but then it would be too crowded. And there is them at the culture fair, and there is me in my national dress. Of course, I don't look that good, but it was the only decent picture from that day that I had with my decent face because I was really tired. And we each represented our own country. So Sasha and Diana and Dana represented Ukraine. This is Tala. She represented Palestine, and right now she studies at Cambridge University in England, and she's been through a lot because of the Gaza conflict, because she's from an immensely troubled and hard region of Gaza. So she completed her education in Lebanon, and she studies in Cambridge now. So yeah, this is Vasudev. He is from India. So he's from Pakistan. Jolkaf, I think he's from Mozambique. And this is Taimur, he's from Azerbaijan. And with all of them, I communicate. We have a group chat, and once or twice a month, we always make it a point to speak to each other and just catch up and just know where each of us are standing right now in life and what have we done to just better ourselves and how our life is progressing. So I wanted to show you a few pictures from my travel to Turkey in 2016. The reason I've included these pictures is that Turkey has been my dream for as long as I remember, together with Egypt. And when I left United States, of course, it was a year full of excitement, full of new experiences, new friends. But when I returned, I had an exceptionally hard year, one of the hardest years of my life, because I've had to complete my high school, and I have gone to university 1 year later because of my exchange program, because I needed to take a test, an exam in German and get my diploma. I had that German exam. I had my uni entrance exam, so I was really stressed. So my parents decided to give me this trip to Turkey, and I have spent there 3 weeks. And all the pictures that you see here are taken by me. So this is the Süleymaniye Mosque. I'm apologizing for the quality of the pictures because I had to cut them from my Instagram page because I didn't have them in my laptop anymore. So this is the view of the western part of Istanbul from the roof of Süleymaniye Mosque. It was my favorite mosque. Of course, I visited many places, but I just included my favorite pictures. And this is the Museum of Innocence. It was created by a writer, Orhan Pamuk. He's my favorite writer. He regularly speaks out against the prejudices and political issues in Turkey. He's a brilliant writer, and visiting his museum, it was a dream come true. And he wrote a book based on that museum. But first, what he did, he created he saw a place while driving his daughter to school, and he thought that there isn't enough appreciation for the ordinary objects of everyday life and their story connected to our lives and how they impact us. So then he just kind of collected all those objects and placed them in a museum, and then based on those objects and their history, he created a book for which he received a Nobel Prize. So it was a real dream come true. So this is my university. There is a... Oh yes, Mr. Adams, did you want to say something?
I just applaud that idea of using everyday objects as art, because oftentimes we elevate things, that may not have as much meaning. And I think if we can somehow use our personal lives as a way to facilitate creativity, that's beautiful. That's marvelous.
Yes, absolutely. And I was just there while people spend a maximum amount of like 1.5 hours or 1 hour or like 20 minutes inside of museum. I didn't go out of there like for 5 hours. I just photographed everything, and just my mom, who was with me at the time, just couldn't. I admire her patience, because she just went and took pictures of everything and just patiently waited for me while I was just showering each object with love, because he's my favorite writer, and like meeting him and experiencing this was my dream. Of course, I didn't get to meet him. I saw his house though, so that was the best thing next to this experience. So this is my university. There's this overall view of campus, and there far off you see our accommodations, our housing. So this is our library, and once you go from there to this side, there is our mensa, which is kind of dining hall, and you eat there. And this picture actually was taken by me because I liked the blossoms, so I had to take there. And this is the campus too. Actually, there is a long straight path leading from campus 1 to campus 2, and there they teach technical subjects. So if, God forbid, you have from this place, this is an AB building aside from the library. So if, God forbid, you have one lecture in this place and another in this, you are in big trouble, because the path from this one to this one takes at least 30 minutes, and it's really tiring. So yeah, this is the overall view of this complex. And this, like at the bottom of the steps, is where you couldn't see the door, but there is a door do you see my mouse? Here. At the bottom of the steps, there is a door, and there I have my Egyptology faculty. So, yes. And there are my friends. These two actually are Georgians, and one of them is doing her master's. One of them is in high school, which is just a technical branch of the university. It isn't real high school, but another type of diploma. There are my Georgian friends. This is actually the Jordanian friend I was telling you about. Her name is Sahar, and she's just absolutely marvelous. And these pictures were taken on my birthday, the year before last. And there is a picture of a really famous 19th century duchess, Jaqueta, and we were advised to go there by the tourist agency. We just roamed the whole Luxembourg on our own, so we just had to accept tips here and there. So that's me on her steps. Well, thank you. That was all from my side.
Wonderful experiences, and I'm really thankful you were able to kind of give us a roundabout tour of your home country, as well as your experiences in the United States, and of course your travels. And all of those images, just make me so happy because it really, I'm a very, very visual person. So to see it is really wonderful. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Anything you feel like to ask, you can ask me anytime.
This would be a great time to ask some questions as we sort of round up the conversation. I'm sure I could talk forever because I'm incredibly interested, but I want you guys to speak up. I think you received my my text requesting maybe you could email me your presentation. That would allow me to have a higher quality if we were to use some of those pictures.
Of course, of course.
Wonderful. This is kind of a good opportunity for us to summarize and round up what we've talked about. When we think about your future, what do you see your career or next step being?
My next step right now is finishing my bachelor's degree because it's stressing me out, because obviously I was going to finish next semester, but because of Corona, we couldn't take some exams. So another year of that added to it, and now I have a year and a half. But then I would like to apply for my master's, and I'm already thinking about that. I have like at least 4 options, but I would like to, the reason I've started this early, I know it's ridiculously early, but in order for me to really make a responsible and really thought out decision is to just see kind of who has the programs I'm interested in, how can I apply, because my parents can't really finance me because they are putting all their finances in my current education, and it's unfair to ask them to finance me this much. I'm sure they would, but it's putting a strain on them too. And there are a great opportunity and just finance programs that I can apply to, and my long-term goal is going to my through all the way to my doctorate, and just combining Arabic studies and Egyptology, and studying ancient texts as well as Islamic culture, and just combining 2 aspects of Egyptian culture, and just doing, I can do anything with this. I can participate on excavations, I can go to the temples and translate ancient texts, which we are going to do in Egyptology. And I also want to pursue an archaeological degree because I was studying there in Georgia, but the quality of study wasn't that good. So of course, an Egyptologist needs that. And I plan to really study and deepen my knowledge in a few other languages. So I have a lot of goals, and I also want to be a writer if time permits, because I've already started writing a book, but I had to stop because I basically never have any time because I have a lot of assignments, and it's crazy. But I have a lot of goals, but they, while being ambitious, they need a lot of time to be achieved and a lot of effort. So I don't like speaking before something happens. So
Very good, very good. Well, I'm so thankful for this time together, and I know that my students will appreciate this conversation as we unpack it over the coming weeks. We're going to be, sharing all the cultures, And I'm hopeful that students will be inspired to pursue their dreams wherever it takes them, like you have. So excited. So thank you again for this time together.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And again, if anyone has any questions, you can contact me on my Facebook. I also have an email. I'm sure Mr. Adams will provide you with my email because I've put it, yes, in the chat. As I remember, if I haven't, I will. And you can always message me on Facebook. And please don't hesitate. If you have any questions or if I can help in any way, please contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is your last chance. Everyone say goodbye and thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks again. And we'll talk again very soon. I hope you're safe, and the best wishes to you.
Thank you. To you as well.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.